Hey everyone! For this week's discussion, I looked at the community guide and how it can be used to develop evidence-based physical activity interventions. The community guide is a resource developed through the Community Preventative Services Task Force, or CPSTF. Its purpose is to help public health professionals, schools, communities, and other organizations make decisions based on evidence rather than simply choosing interventions because they seem like a good idea. The recommendations are based on systematic reviews of research evaluating whether different interventions actually work. The community guide also identifies areas where there is not enough evidence to make a recommendation, which I think is equally important when developing a public health program. Now, I think the resource is especially useful because there's often a big difference between knowing that physical activity is important and actually changing physical activity behavior. For example, the community guide currently recommends enhanced school-based physical education as an effective strategy for increasing physical activity. These programs can modify teaching strategies, increase active time during PE, and incorporate fitness and circuit training activities. Research reviewed by the community guide found that students in enhanced PE programs spend a greater proportion of their PE time engaged in moderate to vigorous physical activity, compared with students receiving standard PE. This recommendation applies to children and adolescents, including students in middle school. Now, I would use the community guide directly in developing my semester project, which is a middle school physical literacy program. My goal is not simply to tell students that exercise is healthy. I want to teach them how to exercise safely and effectively, develop basic movement competency, introduce age-appropriate resistance training, and build enough confidence that they feel comfortable being physically active outside of school. Now, I think confidence is probably one of the most important factors in exercise retention. From my experience as a personal trainer, people are much more likely to continue exercising when they feel like they know what they are doing and are capable of performing the exercises correctly. I think middle school students can experience the same thing, especially because embarrassment can be a major barrier. Traditional PE may not appeal to every student, and some students may avoid participating because they feel uncomfortable being judged by their classmates. Now, because of that, I would design the program as a combination of enhanced PE and some after-school opportunities. During PE, students can learn fundamental movement patterns, basic resistance training techniques, proper warm-ups, and simple methods for progressing exercises. The emphasis would be on learning rather than competition. Students could then have access to an after-school program where they could practice these skills in a more relaxed environment and gradually develop their confidence. The community guide would help determine which components of this program should be included. For example, its recommendation for enhanced PE provides evidence supporting changes to traditional PE rather than simply adding more information about the importance of exercise. The community guide also supports family-based interventions and other approaches that create additional opportunities for children to be physically active. I also found it interesting that the community guide does not recommend simply relying on classroom-based health education that provides information about physical activity. It found insufficient evidence that information-focused classroom education alone increases physical activity or fitness. I think this distinction is extremely important. If we tell students that exercise is good for them but never teach them how to exercise, provide opportunities to practice, or create an environment where they feel comfortable participating, we should not necessarily expect their behavior to change. That is ultimately how I would use the community guide, as a starting point for determining what evidence supports, what evidence does not support, and what areas still require additional research. I could then combine those recommendations with the needs of specific school population. For my program, that means considering student confidence, embarrassment, accessibility, school resources, teacher training, and opportunities for physical activity outside of traditional PE. Now, overall, I think the community guide provides an important bridge between research and real-world public health practice. Instead of designing an intervention based entirely on personal opinion, we can use evidence to determine which strategies are most likely to work and then adapt those strategies to the population we are trying to reach. For my middle school physical literacy program, that means using evidence-supported school-based physical activity strategies while adding an emphasis on something I believe is often overlooked: teaching students the skills and confidence they need to remain physically active for the rest of their lives. Thank you. That's all I got for you guys today.